Penn State's offense has struggled, to say the least. At times, it's looked broken. But here's how they can fix the issues.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked on to Penn State football, and as always, thank you so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. My name is Seyko, and I am your host of the show, credentialed media member for both Penn State football and Penn State wrestling. A ton to break down in today's show. A new superstar is emerging for Penn State's defense. We're going to talk about how to fix Penn State's offensive issues first. But is Penn State even running the right system? Drew Allar, apparently this system is wrong for a quarterback like Drew Allar. We'll break that down in the upcoming segment. But we got to start with these offensive issues overall and how they can be fixed. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Friendly reminder to let me know your thoughts down in the comments section. And if you're not an everydayer, become one. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts for these daily conversations. Starting with these offensive issues. So when I look back at the Oregon game and I look back at, honestly, all four games, from Andy Kotelnicki, I kind of see a lack of confidence in the passing game. So I'm going to talk about the passing game, what Penn State can do with the offensive line, and Nicholas Singleton, Kaytron Allen, right? We've seen Singleton struggle, but it starts with the passing game because you lose Tyler Warren, who was 90% of your passing production. Okay, maybe that's an exaggeration, but it probably was that, honestly. Maybe that's not an exaggeration. You lose Tyler Warren, and then you bring in three veteran transfer portal wide receivers who have not played any football with Drew Allar, and one of them, who was the best of the bunch, came in after spring football. So they didn't even get the winter workouts in the spring football season to learn the playbook and build chemistry with Drew Allar. What I'm getting at is Penn State needs to make a true commitment to throwing the football. So it kind of goes back to the argument of, just chuck it deep, right? Just throw it deep. Remember, it's not quite that. But you have an opportunity. I'm not saying just blindly start passing the football 50, 60 times a game, but kind of like Nevada, maybe make more of a concerted effort to throw the ball 55 to 60% of the time, especially over the course of these next two games. Because UCLA and Northwestern, these aren't threats, okay? And now me dismissing UCLA and Northwestern, but let's be honest, okay? Penn State's going to be Penn State already is almost a 4-touchdown favorite against UCLA. They're probably going to be the same thing against Northwestern. You have time to, practice some things, experiment with some wrinkles, and that's what I'm going to discuss here with the likes of Nicholas Singleton and Kaytron Allen, particularly in the running game. But there needs to be, I've said this earlier in the season, that this was the key to at least helping the passing game, because against Oregon, wide receivers are struggling to get open. You can see timing issues with Kyron Hudson between Allar and Kyron Hudson. Not trusting Trevor Pena. There was one particular play where Pena is being held by an Oregon defensive back, go figure, but Allar leaves the read just as Pena is able to break through, and then there's the offensive line issues because the pass rush had gotten through. So timing, rapport, all those things, I think Penn State should kind of go back to a concerted game plan like it felt against Nevada, where, hey, Drew Allar threw the ball 26 times and was 22 of 26, and Trevor Pena and Kyron Hudson had no issues there. Do it against Big Ten competition. Make that effort to throw the football consistently. All right, let's get to the offensive line, because in order to be able to throw the football and run the football, go figure, right? You need your front five blocking coherently. Look, Oregon's defensive line was just better. Okay, they were just flat out better. I'm not saying that Penn State's offensive line needs a complete makeover or anything like that, but here's what I will say. Consider reopening that competition between the right guard and right tackle spot. Consider it, okay? Because if you are going to get better production, maybe the move with Anthony Donko at right guard just isn't working. because all 5 of them struggled, but I just saw it. Nolan Rucci and Anthony Donko. Is it a chemistry thing? Because Donko, remember, was playing right tackle. He was playing right tackle all of last season, and then when he was lost to injury, Rucci stepped in and performed very well. Here's also what I do look at when I look at the offensive line issues. Rucci and Donko did not play a lot of spring football. Rucci played some, but they missed valuable time to continue to develop and capitalize on the seasons they were having last go around in 2024. They're catching up. But Donko, that's a big change to go from right tackle to right guard. That is a big deal. That is a chemistry thing with Nick Dawkins at center. And it is also a chemistry issue with Rucci at right tackle when you are playing out of position like this. If you can get better results, I think it is worth opening up the competition again to have Donko at right tackle and who knows, TJ Shanahan at right guard, Cooper Cousins at right guard, and then have Rucci float as a backup left tackle, as a backup right tackle. Maybe you kick him inside to guard if necessary. But if you're going to continue to have these struggles, because these issues shouldn't be happening. This is a veteran offensive line. Rucci, Donko, Dawkins, Shelton, Ioane have all played a ton of college football, but they're having all these it seems chemistry issues, combo blocks, communication, just losing one-on-one battles. How did that happen when they had the run that they had in those final 4 games of the season against truly elite competition? Yes, Boise State and SMU had very talented front sevens, and Penn State's offensive line performed at its best a season ago at that time during the playoff run. So if Shanahan and Donko is going to be a better combo on the right side than Donko and Rucci, I think it is worth exploring. Also run more of those 6-7 offensive lineman sets. When James Franklin goes on the record and says, hey, we have 7 offensive linemen that we consider starters, do it. You don't have Tyler Warren as that unicorn anymore. Let that be that specialty portion of the offense. You don't have Bo Pribula anymore. So Nicholas Singleton, Kaytron Allen, run the football. Go at him. If you have all these talented offensive linemen, use them. I know that complicates things when Donko leaves the game against Oregon, but he did return. He looked like he had a right leg injury. He did return in that game and played for a majority of it. But I was expecting, especially against a 4-2-5, more of those 6-7 offensive lineman sets. Didn't really see it against Oregon now, did we? Now let's talk about the running backs in this situation. So Nicholas Singleton has not looked great to start. Kaytron Allen has been phenomenal. He's averaging over 7 yards per carry. I am not advocating for Penn State to bench Singleton. I still think Singleton is a phenomenal football player, but start to use him in a different way. There was all this discourse around RB3, running back number 3. We haven't seen any 3 running back sets quite yet, okay? Is that because Cam Wallace and Quentin Martin and Corey Smith just aren't ready, that they truly don't have the depth? And if Singleton or Allen gets hurt, then it really throws a wrench into everything? So be it. I would like to see more of those 3 running back sets. I do trust Cam Wallace. Cam Wallace was playing at the beginning of last season in those 3 RB sets. So if he's just not 110% yet, and you're cautiously approaching how you're handling a Quentin Martin, who we know is dealing with some bumps and bruises, Cam Wallace coming back from a serious injury, I can understand that, but hopefully we get to see that at some point. Back to Singleton, though. Kaytron Allen should be the primary RB1, and then Singleton becomes this hybrid, because we talked all off season long, and James Franklin has mentioned it too, how Singleton's just a better pass catcher. He's better at catching passes and running routes, and he's really developed in that part of his game. Use him there. Use him as an extra wide receiver. Use him as a guy that can move around the formation. You have Kaytron Allen in the backfield, line up Nicholas Singleton in the slot. Have him act as an RB wide receiver hybrid, where he'll come in where he will be in the slot, come in motion, and then you fake the handoff to him. I'm just thinking of some different ways that they can get creative, but you can have your best football players, your best 11 on the football field on offense does include Kaytron Allen and Nicholas Singleton at the same time. And then Singleton in the slot against a linebacker on a quick slant. Are you kidding me? That is a total mismatch. I say that you can get really creative by creating an RB wide receiver hybrid position for Nicholas Singleton, and allow it to complement Kaytron Allen out of the backfield. So that is what I would do to immediately fix some of these things that, look broken or are struggling there. That is what I would do with Penn State's offense there. So time will tell if we see any of those different wrinkles in Andy Kotelnicki's offense. But I've been told that this system is just flat out wrong. It is incorrect. This offense is built for Beau Pribula and not Drew Allar. We're going to put some of those misconceptions to rest here. Coming up next on Locked On Nittany Lions. And this episode is brought to you by Quo. One of the tools that help make a huge difference for business owners is Quo, formerly Open Phone. It's the same great business phone system you've heard me talk about before, but just with a different name. And here's why it matters. Every missed call is money left on the table. When every customer conversation counts, you need a phone system that keeps you connected 24/7. Quo is the #1 business phone system that streamlines customer communications. It works right through an app on your phone or computer, so no more carrying two phones or relying on a landline. Their built-in AI agent is a game changer. It can answer calls after hours, capture leads, and keep business moving even when you're off the clock. And whether you're a solo operator juggling everything or you're part of a larger team, Quo makes it easy to stay responsive and professional. See why over 90,000 businesses trust Quo, formerly Open Phone. Get started for free and get 20% off your first 6 months over at quo.com/lockedoncollege. That is quo.com/lockedoncollege. And if you've got existing numbers with another service, Quo will port them over at no extra charge. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. I've gotten quite a few comments about this one, that Penn State is just running a completely wrong offense. This offensive system is not designed for Drew Allar. It's designed for Beau Pribula, and it's just completely wrong. They need to scrap it. They need to run a pro-style offense to fit Drew Allar's needs and talents. Okay, well, I don't disagree with that, but it's not the wrong offense. Andy Kotelnicki was brought in for the exact purpose of being able to build a system around the strengths of Drew Allar, but at the time when you had both quarterbacks, Beau Pribula as well. But since Beau Pribula's not there anymore, okay, now your system truly becomes tailored only to Drew Allar. There's no separate portion of the playbook designed for your backup QB. Maybe they could do something for Ethan Grunkemeyer, but Grunkemeyer's not a true dual threat either, like Beau Pribula was. With that being said, the system is not incorrect. I think there's a misconception here around the offense and the style of offense that Penn State is just running purely. So let's start with this. Let's clear this up. An RPO system and RPO plays do not mean that only dual threat quarterbacks can run them. Just for anybody that's wondering, and maybe I don't want to speak to my audience like they don't know football or anything like that, but if there's somebody listening, if there's somebody that is watching maybe for the first time that doesn't understand that, a RPO does not mean read option. It means run pass option. A run pass option play is simply you either hand the ball off to a running back or you throw a quick slant or a quick out route or a swing pass. It literally just means a quarterback has the option to hand the football off or throw a quick pass. That's all it is. It is an option. It's kind of like an option route. A wide receiver has the option to either break inside or break out, and you have to be very disciplined to run those types of things. I would like to think that Drew Allar, as a fourth-year quarterback, third-year starting, some people are going to now disagree with me because we just can kind of keep adding these games where the results aren't speaking for themselves, or I guess they are speaking for themselves, right? But Allar is at least smart enough to recognize how to run RPO types of plays, to be able to read a defensive end or a linebacker and say, okay, I'm going to hand this off, or I'm going to it just gives you a little more flexibility in your play calling, that you're not fully committed to a run play. You're not fully committed to a pass play. You can have a legitimate option in the middle of the play, and it takes a disciplined, smart quarterback to be able to pull that off. More people might start to disagree. Well, Drew Allar isn't that. Okay. All right. But hey, let's have a different conversation about that then. In terms of the system itself, an RPO system doesn't need to be run by a running quarterback. So that's part one. Here's part two. This isn't an RPO system. Penn State is not running an RPO offense. They are running elements. They have RPO plays, but they are not running a read option offense. They are not running an offense that is specifically designed for Bo Pribula. Andy Kotelnicki can run whatever system. That's why he was brought in, because his system is it can be molded to whatever it needs to be to fit your players. This is a multiple offense with elements of pro style, RPO, whatever is needed to make the offense go. You'll see a little bit of wildcat with Kaytron Allen and Nicholas Singleton. Okay, well, that's too gimmicky and this and that. So be it. Agree to disagree as far as what Kotelnicki's specialty parts of the playbook should and shouldn't be. Some people are going to say that they are too gimmicky. I like Penn State's offense. I like Andy Kotelnicki's creativity, because when they can really settle in, when they are executing, it's an execution issue with the offense. It is not, I don't think it's a personnel issue per se. I don't think it's too difficult. It's too complicated. These guys have been working at it for over a year. I don't think Andy Kotelnicki's system is too complicated. It's actually very simple as he's described it. It just has a lot of moving parts, and that's the whole point of it. It's the deception. It's to confuse defenses. But to say that Penn State is running an incorrect system and it's setting up Drew Allar for failure is just wrong, because it's not that. It is not a read option offense that is designed for a mobile quarterback. Can Andy Kotelnicki produce an offense that is like that? Would he design a playbook that would have been tailored to Bo Pribula? Absolutely. Absolutely, if that was the case. Let's say Allar goes pro. Allar would have went off to the NFL and Bo Pribula had ended up staying. He would have designed an offense that was specifically for Bo Pribula, because that's what you can do with a multiple offense. You can do the same thing with a multiple defense. Instead of being committed, hey, we run a 4-3 base. We run a 3-4. A 4-2-5, right? As Jim Knowles. You can run a multiple hybrid that is just, it's different. It's dynamic. And that's what Kotelnicki's offense is aiming to be when you execute on the right terms. So does Allar fit this offense? Well, yes, because any quarterback can fit into a multiple offense that has different styles. It's other quarterbacks that, hey, they're run first. They don't throw as well. They really rely on their legs. That's where you have to skew your offense, and you can't do a variety of different things. That's not me saying anything about Bo Pribula. I'm just speaking generally for dual threat quarterbacks that aren't the best passers. Bo Pribula is definitely a lot better as a passer right now, but we know that he definitely can use his legs to help him out and help set up the passing with play action and everything else. Allar isn't a runner. At least that's not his first choice. He can run. He's not a true dual threat. He's not a speedster, but there's also the misconception that, Allar's a statue. He'll never be able, he made plays with his legs against Oregon. He's done it in the past against other teams when needed, but it is not his first choice. And that's kind of the confusing part about all of this, because why is Kotelnicki dialing up some running plays when Allar is a passing quarterback? Because that's what leads me to believe that there's not that much confidence in the passing game right now. Okay? Why? Because I don't think that Penn State would intentionally run a system that doesn't help their quarterback. They're not, and you're never going to get me to believe that. I know they legitimately aren't, but you couldn't argue that to me anyway. And then let's try to read between the lines. Why is Kotelnicki calling a really terrible play here? Is he just all of a sudden a bad offensive coordinator and a bad play caller? No, the evidence doesn't back that up. Aside from the Oregon game with some questionable play calling, in Ohio State, 2 top 5 defenses that they've faced, Kotelnicki has a pretty sound track record for calling plays against everybody else. So aside from Jim Knowles' defense that was number 1 in the country last season, And then Oregon, who's putting together, honestly, maybe a top 3, maybe the number 1 overall defense when all's said and done. We'll see, but that is a top 5 group right now. That's where Kotelnicki has struggled, but I go back to execution, because why is Kotelnicki calling a run play on 3rd and 9? Because the passing game needs work. All of that can be true at the same time. Kotelnicki's still a good OC, but the passing game needs work, and they need to build confidence there. That's why we talked about what we talked about in the first segment. Good news, though, on the defensive side of things. Penn State has a new superstar emerging on defense. That is right, a superstar. We're going to talk about him and what it means for Penn State's team coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you do not want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right, pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. FanDuel is great because it makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. FanDuel gives you so many ways to play. Parlays, you can try player props, even follow the live lines during games. Whether you're a casual fan or you love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. Adds a little energy to your Sundays with NFL football. You can also bet on college football on Saturdays, including Penn State football. Lines are up for Penn State versus UCLA. The Nittany Lions are a heavy favorite against the Bruins. 25.5 points on the spread, minus 4,500 on the money line, plus 1,600 if you're thinking UCLA. The total is set at 50.5 out in California. If you like those lines, they're available over at FanDuel.com. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. A new superstar emerging on defense overall. Amare Campbell, linebacker. They got out of the transfer portal late in the spring, after the spring. So like Trevor Pena, joined the team after spring football, which, isn't ideal. But that doesn't stop Amare Campbell from emerging as Penn State, honestly, as of right now, Penn State's best defender when you talk about tangible statistics. I know in terms of talent, Dennis-Sutton is probably, if he heard that, he would disagree respectfully, and that's fine. But when you look at the contributions that Amare Campbell has given thus far, through 4 games, 3 wins and 1 loss, Campbell is the defensive MVP so far, and was a huge reason, not only, amassing 15 tackles in 1 game, it is one thing, but it's the way that he coaches the defense. That's right. Amare Campbell, a player is acting as an extra additional coach. It's an art. I wanted to highlight it in real time because I'm watching, seeing the defense, and they're making all these shifts and changes. He wears the green dot. So he came in with that experience from North Carolina, being that Mike linebacker, being a true Mike linebacker, which Penn State didn't have going into this season, at least an experienced one. Maybe there's upside down the road with an Anthony Specca or an Alex Tatch. You could have Tony Rojas take on that role, but that'd be the first time, and he'd be playing out of position. He's better as the weak side linebacker. He's better as that guy that drops into coverage more often than not. So they needed a Mike linebacker, and Amare Campbell has stepped up, and then some, and Dom DeLuca as well. But again, Dom DeLuca has never been a true Mike linebacker quarterbacking the defense. And with Jim Knowles' new system, for somebody to come in and immediately, Campbell's taken 5, 6, 7 steps forward as a player himself. He is flourishing in this Knowles system. But back to my point about the game itself, is that Campbell is able to quarterback the defense. And it is truly an art to see him watch Dante Moore make adjustments at the line of scrimmage. He's going up to one player and he's telling them to shift over. He's telling the defensive line, hey, make sure you attack this gap. He's communicating with Tony Rojas and the other players around him, the other defensive backs. And Campbell he flies to the football. He's instinctive. He's cerebral. You could make an argument that Campbell is one of the smartest players in all of college football. You could say that for the Big Ten, definitely, but I would say in all of college football, Penn State Now he missed a couple of tackles in the Oregon game, but I chalk that up to the fact that, Penn State's defense was on the football field for a lot of the time. He was bound to make a mistake at some point, but he didn't make a lot of them. He made maybe one or two in that game against Oregon, but it is great to see Penn State have another asset that where linebacker was a question mark going into the season. It still is to an extent from the depth chart perspective. Amare Campbell absolutely solidifies your starting base with Campbell. Rojas had a really good game against Oregon. He didn't have the same kind of production as Campbell, but he's still been very productive over the course of the season. And looks like both of them, Campbell and Rojas alike, look like all conference players. Campbell, can I say that he's potentially going to be an All-American? If he continues this, maybe, but that's the level that Campbell is performing at. The level of a superstar where it's not just an Dennis-Sutton that's all alone. You would still like to see a little more from a Zane Durant. You're actually getting that in the secondary as well. I think Wheatley has played up to a superstar level. He had a phenomenal game against Oregon. Again, I know in the scheme of things, moral victories don't sound great, but it's nice to see that Penn State has a true superstar playmaker at all three levels. And yes, A.J. Harris can be included in that group from time to time, but I'm talking about the Oregon game specifically. You know what you haven't denied Dennis-Sutton. Amare Campbell is emerging as one of these true faces of the defense that does more than, hey, he's just a tackling machine. No, he is the quarterback, an extension of Jim Knowles on the defensive football field. He gets the call from Knowles in the headset up in the press box. He relays it to everybody around him, and he makes the defense better. He's not just making himself better as a player. He makes everybody around him on defense because he knows the assignments. He can read the offense. He knows hey, you need to be here. You need to slide over here. Watch for this play. And he's such a great communicator. So for Penn State to go and get that in the transfer portal and then have Campbell injected into the lineup just like that and getting top tier production, talk about lucky. Talk about just being able to do that when, your linebacker depth was a huge question mark. And like I said, still is to an extent, but Campbell's solidifying it. He is another star that is emerging on this defense, and that's why Penn State's defense is already a top 10 group in the nation, because you have playmakers at all three levels, and guys like A.J. Harris will continue to get better and continue to turn into that star caliber player. We'll see Zane Durant produce more. Xavier Gilliam has had a solid opening quarter to the season thus far. Obviously, Chaz Coleman early on has shown that breakout potential, right? So Penn State is getting more contributors. Still nice to see Campbell step up to that superstar level, though, that complements what Wheatley is doing presently, and a guy like Dennis-Sutton, who is already the face of this Penn State defense. You can never have too many faces of a position group or of an offense or an defense, right? And Amare Campbell is just that. Tackling machine, but also just understands the game of football, knows how to play the 4D chess within the game. That's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. I appreciate each and every one of you for checking out this podcast. Thank you. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section. If you are new to the show, subscribe to the YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts, because we do this daily. All your favorite Penn State sports teams are covered right here, whether it's Penn State football, wrestling, recruiting, basketball, hockey, you name it. It's all right here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And once again, thank you so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. Another announcement that we want to share with all of you. It's another big moment here on the Locked On Podcast Network. College football fans, Locked On and Fire TV are proud to present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year, Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts. A college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV.